Texas belongs to me, so take your dirty paws off it. Nah, Texas belongs to me, you back off. Oh no, it was my state, so it belongs to me. No. Texas won its independence and wants to join me, so Texas belongs to me. Do I have a say in this matter? You shut your mouth, Texas. Adults are talking. The Mexican-American War is one of the most crucial wars in history, where Mexico basically lost 50% of its territory to America, and it all happened because of Texas. Hey, what'd I do? Well, to know what Texas did, we have to rewind a bit. How does this thing work? There we go. It's the 1800s. In the last 2 decades, the USA achieved so many great things. It kicked some royal butts and won itself independence. And with that independence came all this shiny new land. But soon after gaining all those lands, America caught a very serious case of, well, what do the experts call it? Yes, manifest destiny. Manifest destiny was a 19th century belief that the United States was destined by God to expand its territory across the North American continent, from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. But it was just an excuse to acquire more territory. But you see, there was this tiny issue known as thousands of Native Americans and millions of bison. Whoa, that's a huge issue. How are we gonna expand and manifest our destiny? You see, Jimmy, there was this very powerful magical wand that solves all your problems, otherwise known as a gun. We used it, and our problems went away. Oopsie. Oh no, those poor bison. Just shut up and eat your steak, Jimmy. So, America manifested its destiny and started acquiring a bunch of new land. The USA bought Louisiana in 1803 from France for just $15 million, equivalent to $400 million of today's money. It's still pocket change. Darn it, should have asked for more money. Then in 1819, Florida was taken from Spain through a negotiation deal where the US promised not to claim Texas. That promise didn't age well. We even tried turning Canada into the 51st state during the War of 1812. Yeah, that didn't go well either. But all those new lands were still not enough. Why? 2 words, cotton and slaves. The South's economy became addicted to cotton and to the enslaved labor that made it profitable. The more cotton they grew, the more slaves they needed, and the more land they demanded for new plantations. But all that new land only made things worse because the North and South states started fighting. And then came Texas. Finally, it's my time to shine. Hold your horses, Texas. Let me quickly explain how you started a whole war. In 1821, Mexico gained its independence from Spain, but years of war left the economy weak. Political leaders kept fighting over how to run the country, and Mexico struggled to control its huge territory, including far-off regions like Texas and California. To strengthen the region, Mexico invited Americans called Anglo-settlers to move in, offering cheap land and hoping they would become loyal Mexican citizens. You sweet summer child, Mexico, you learned nothing from the Revolutionary War. The settlers did the exact opposite. Most settlers kept slavery, spoke English instead of Spanish. When Mexico tried to enforce its laws like banning slavery and limiting further U.S. immigration, the settlers got angry and declared Texas independence on March 2nd. 1836. From Mexico's point of view, Texas was still a rebellious province that would eventually be brought back under control. So when Texans started asking to join the United States, Mexico immediately warned the US that if they annexed Texas, it would mean war. Devastation and carnage to the maximum degree. The USA annexed Texas like in the next instant. They didn't even wait for it. Awkward. On December 29th, 1845, Texas joined USA and became the 28th state. Mexico was furious and threatened to defend its territory. At that time, the US president was James K. Polk, and Polk was like, why stop here when we can have more Mexican territory? So on April 25th, 1846, he sent US troops into the disputed border region near the Rio Grande, knowing it would provoke a clash. He was a generation rage baiter. General Zachary Taylor and his army of 3,500 men marched into the Rio Grande. Not only that, the US built Fort Texas right next to the Mexican city of Matamoros. They were baiting Mexico hard. General Taylor even sent a small U.S. cavalry patrol to scout reports of Mexican troops. On the 25th of April, 1846, Mexican cavalry surrounded and attacked them in the disputed land north of the Rio Grande. This event was later named the Thornton Affair. The U.S. government used this Thornton Affair incident as an act of war. The president declared that American blood had been shed on American soil, even though it was technically disputed territory. Mexican was not able to resist the bait and declared war on the USA. In response to the Thornton Affair, General Zachary Taylor advanced his troops to confront the Mexican Army of the North, commanded by General Mariano Arista. On the 8th of May, 1846, the Battle of Palo Alto was fought. The terrain favored U.S. throughout the afternoon. Taylor's artillery pounded at Mexican infantry in cavalry formations, breaking their attacks and forcing Arista to withdraw at night. The next day, 9th of May, 1846, Arista attempted to make a second defensive stand in dense thorny brush along a dry riverbed called the Resaca de la Palma. The narrow trails helped the Mexicans. However, American infantry managed to flank key artillery emplacements while U.S. dragoons charged directly into the heart of the Mexican line, overrunning their gunners. Under heavy pressure, the Mexican soldiers panicked and fled toward the Rio Grande, with many drowning while attempting to escape. Taylor's troops captured supplies, weapons, and several standards, securing a decisive victory. Together, Palo Alto and Resaca de la Palma marked the moment the border dispute escalated into full-scale war. Finally, on the 13th of May, 1846, the United States officially declared war on Mexico. One of the first big moves was a naval blockade on Mexico. Hey, we're blocking your ports now. Wait, you can't do that. We already did that. What are you gonna do about it? Yeah, so at that time, Mexico had no navy, so they just stared at the American ships. And the U.S. Navy had nothing to do besides catching fish. The blockade worked way too well. Mexico couldn't trade, couldn't get supplies, and basically just stood there on the beach. Meanwhile, U.S. troops under General Zachary Taylor marched deeper into northern Mexico. In September 1846, Taylor captured Monterrey after dramatic street battles. Then came February 1847, and the Battle of Buena Vista, when General Taylor was up against Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. This guy. Santa Anna was a Mexican general, also the president. Before the war started, Santa Anna was exiled in Cuba because he kept making himself president over and over again. But when the war broke out, Mexico called him back. On the way home, Santa Anna made a secret deal with the United States, promising that he would negotiate peace on America's behalf and surrender when the time came. Then he arrived back in Mexico and did the exact opposite. He immediately made himself president again, took command of the army again, and jumped straight into the war. Santa Anna determined to turn the war around, assembled a huge army of around 15,000 men, and marched north through mountains and cold weather to surprise Taylor. On February 22, 1847, the Battle of Buena Vista started. Despite being seriously outnumbered, Taylor used the narrow pass of La Angostura to his advantage, turning the terrain into a shield. Around 4,000 to 5,000 Mexican soldiers deserted the fight. By nightfall, Santa Anna's soldiers were exhausted, low on ammunition, and starving. Fearing his entire army might collapse, Santa Anna retreated. In the process, General Taylor unlocked future presidency. He became the 12th president. While the U.S. was busy fighting Mexico and Texas, a bunch of American settlers in California said, "Hey, we want in on this." So on June 14, 1846, about 33 guys marched into Sonoma, arrested the Mexican commander, and declared California a new country because why not? They even made a flag with a bear on it, except the bear they drew looked so weird that most people thought it was a fat pig on legs. So they proudly called it the California Republic. This epic new nation lasted a grand total of 25 days because on July 7th, the U.S. Navy showed up like, "Good news, you're Americans now." By early 1847, the entire region was under U.S. military control. So yes, California was briefly a country founded by 33 dudes and a pig bear flag. In March 1847, the U.S. invaded sea with 10,000 troops in the first American beach party of history, landing on March 9th without a single injury because nobody was guarding the beach, no navy, no army. And then the army marched to the fortress instead of attacking the giant fortress. General Winfield Scott said, "Let's just annoy them into surrendering." So for 20 days, they blasted the city and blocked all the food trucks until Veracruz finally gave up on March 28, 1847. After the U.S. snagged Veracruz, General Winfield Scott began his road trip toward Mexico City. Santa Anna, that guy, returned. He rushed ahead with the Mexican army. On April 17th, that Cerro Gordo Scott sent troops around Santa Anna's defenses like, "Surprise, motherfather!" And Santa Anna retreated again. While retreating, Santa Anna lost his golden prosthetic leg. U.S. soldiers captured the prosthetic leg. That same prosthetic leg became something of a war trophy. The leg later ended up on display at the Illinois State Military Museum in Springfield. Then Scott got closer to Mexico City and Santa Anna tried to defend every rock and cactus on the way. But at Contreras and Churubusco, the Americans broke through faster than Santa Anna could defend it. Running out of places to hide, Santa Anna threw his last defenses behind Chapultepec Castle on September 12th, a fancy fortress on a hill that looked super tough, but the U.S. soldiers climbed it and took it anyway. On September 14th, 1847, Scott casually strolled into Mexico City, while Santa Anna once again activated his superpower, retreating dramatically. And just like that, Mexico's capital fell. Finally, on February 2nd, 1848, the Treaty Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed and ended the Mexican-American War. Mexico was forced to give up about half of its territory to the United States. The U.S. paid Mexico $15 million for the land. The Rio Grande was set as the official border with Texas, while the treaty made the U.S. a much larger nation and fulfilled the idea of manifest destiny. It left Mexico devastated. And finally, the war was over and the Americans lived happily for about 13 years, and then the American Civil War started because of the newly acquired territory. But hey, that's a story for another time.